people on the internet, I have big news. I think I'm getting too excited, so I'm gonna sit down for a second and then we'll talk. Well, first of all, hi everyone, my name is Ava and I'm an American living in the Netherlands. Some of you have been following me for a while, thank you, and others might be new here. So for all of you, I thought let me start this video with a little bit of context as to who I am and how I came about being an American who lives in the Netherlands. And then I will share the big update that I wanted to share with you today. And then I thought I would talk about some of the differences I've already noticed on this topic between the United States and the Netherlands. So stay tuned. So diving right into the context, 9 years ago, I met my current wife, this Dutch woman, when she decided she wanted to come to the United States to do her PhD. We were both in the same PhD program, and a year later, so 8 years ago, we started dating. And when we started dating, she said, well, I like you, but here's the thing. I'm gonna move back to the Netherlands once I'm done with my PhD. I'm gonna stay in the US max 2-3 years tops. And at the time, that didn't scare me. I was up for European adventure because I don't know why, but I had this idea that when I was done with my PhD, I wanted to live in Europe for some time. I had my sights set on Germany. I don't know why. I can't explain it, but I had taken a couple of German classes and I thought that would be really cool. I'd visited Germany, thought that was nice. I also studied Spanish, so I thought Spain would be a great option as well. Listen, I'm not saying I wasn't all over the place. I was. But when she proposed the Netherlands, let's just say because of that, I was completely open. And then we went on a little holiday to the Netherlands. By that, I mean Amsterdam, and we kind of visited Utrecht a little too. And I thought this place seems amazing and I want to move there. So it is totally fine by me that you want to come back after you're done with your PhD. So then about 4.5 years ago, I got lucky and I found a job here in the Netherlands and I moved, and she followed shortly after. That's right, you heard that correctly. So I as an American was living in the Netherlands and she as a Dutchie was living in the United States. So that was interesting, but thankfully that only lasted a few months before she moved here and we started our lives here together. Shortly after, I started making these vlogs and sharing my life with random people on the internet. Just kidding. We're friends, and I know that, and you know that too. And now everyone, it is time to share the next chapter of my life here in the Netherlands, and that is one as a parent. That's right, my wife and I are expecting our first child, and everything around it is absolutely wild. Surprise! So here in the Netherlands, you typically get asked 2 questions right away. One is, when is the due date? And second, is it gonna be a boy or a girl? They say it like, oh, what are you having? And I always think, I hope a human. But anyway, the baby is due in 4 months. And with that said, can you guess which one of us is pregnant? If you said me, stop watching right now. Okay, so now talking about a couple of differences that I've already noticed on this topic between the US and the Netherlands. Now, first of all, I mentioned that this is our first child, so I have not had this experience personally in the US. However, I am aware of what the culture is like. You can simply look up some facts. So I wanted to talk about that a little bit with that in mind. And I also thought that it's kind of interesting because on this topic, there's so much influence from the US and Netherlands. You'll see what I mean in a minute. And I think that has an impact on the culture as well. So anyway, it's all pretty interesting. Just so that you know already, I will not be sharing the sex of the baby, gender, sex of the baby, because gender is a social construct. Anyway, sex of the baby in this video, but we do know what the sex is and I will be sharing that in future videos. So that's a fun update that you can expect in the future. But for now, yes, let us talk about what it is like to find out the sex in the Netherlands versus the US. So in the US, you can actually find out the sex of the baby through a chromosomal test. And here in the Netherlands, that particular test is sort of compensated by the government, so you don't have to pay for it. And because of that, you do not use that to find out the sex of the baby. This is supposed to be a test that looks for genetic disorders, and in the US, that is still the same, but they kind of, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, lump the two. So I know this is a thing because I read about it in books and I asked the midwife here about whether we could find out the sex of the baby that way, and she said no, because it is not fun. Here in the Netherlands, this is serious business, so we do not want to confuse people that this is something that they should be excited about. So anyway, I think that's an interesting difference. So here in the Netherlands, how you find out the sex of the baby is through an ultrasound. Now this ultrasound takes place around 15, 16 weeks, And you know what? It's not very accurate at that time. So I've actually heard of cases where they did it a little too early and then they told people what they thought it was and then they were excited about it. And then couple of weeks later, they were like, oh no, actually it's the opposite sex. And that was pretty funny. Funny for us hearing the story secondhand. But I think for the people this is happening to, it's probably like a tumultuous experience. So okay, we still did the ultrasound, even though we asked ourselves, do we really need to know the sex of the baby? I insisted on it actually because I kind of wanted to shorten our list of baby names. We had a very long list of baby names and I wanted to have like 50% of that. So that was my main, very practical reason for doing this. Not that it mattered to us, you know, what baby we would have. Hopefully a healthy baby, you know, and that's all you can hope for as a parent. I'm not a parent yet, but it sort of feels like that already. It's so interesting. So actually, funnily enough, we had to do 2 ultrasounds to find out the sex of the baby because the first time the child was like, no, not gonna let you see what's going on down there. So that was pretty funny. And then 3 weeks later, we were able to check again and then we found out. Now, here's the thing. You might have heard of the famed gender reveal party that you have in the US. It's really popular in the US, but also here in the Netherlands. And here's the thing, in the US, this is a very, very big deal. And the Netherlands, I think it's a hype that's taken from the US, but it is very much present here. And it's funny because I'm American, people kept asking me, Ava, are you going to do a gender reveal party? And I was like, no, that seems like a lot of work for I don't even know what, because you're happy either way. So it's all very odd. But in the US, this is a big deal. People actually have a whole party for it. And it's not always the case, but it is way big of a deal there than it is here. But here in the Netherlands, let me tell you, did you know that you could have what they call pret-echo's, so ultrasounds for fun, and you could do that in your house, and then you could have your friends and family over to then do this ultrasound where the midwife tells you what the sex of the baby is, like in your house. This seems like a bit over the top for me. Like even for me, I know I'm American and I'm supposed to think this is all normal and fun, but this all seems a bit over the top. So we have no plans for a gender reveal, except maybe on the internet where I do a gender reveal to you because you are special. Now, the other thing that is a hype in the US that is catching on here, and I think even more than the gender reveal party, is a baby shower. Now, that is something that I really want, but my wife is kind of against it. In the US, baby showers are really, 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 really very common. This is just custom. So unlike the gender reveal that some people choose to do and others don't, a baby shower is a must. That is where you get presents from your friends and family. It's a moment to come together and celebrate the fact that the baby's on its way. And as I'm saying this, it probably sounds really nice to you, right? Like you all get together and it's really nice and you play some fun, silly games. But somehow in the Netherlands, amongst people who think, you know, they're sensible and practical, this is completely unnecessary. So people in my surroundings are very much like, oh, why would you have a baby shower? Ha ha ha. And that makes me feel bad because a baby shower is a wonderful thing. But my wife is totally against it. She's like, no. So here's the thing. In the Netherlands, you typically get presents after the baby's born. Whereas in the US, that's usually before. And also after, but mostly before, and that's during the baby shower, where friends and family, maybe even people you don't know that well, but who are happy for you, they can also get you a nice present if they wish. Now for me, it's really not about the presents, but I think that plays a big role for my wife at least, and from the people that I've heard that, you know, you have to go to this party and what's the idea behind it that you play these like baby related games, and I think Dutch people don't get it, but that's my personal opinion. And as I hinted at earlier, this is really picking up in popularity in the Netherlands. Like I've seen a lot of high teas on social media when they have this baby shower, and I find that really interesting to watch because it is part of my culture that has been taken over here. And unlike something like a gender reveal where people really go extravagant and, you know, like all out, I think a baby shower, the baby showers that I've been to at least, were pretty low key and it was just a nice moment to get together. Whereas here, I think I've seen like quite fancy high teas and it's a big event. They rent out a location and everything. And I think, whoa. So if you look at it from that perspective, I understand my wife thinks that it's too much. So we will see what we do. So I'm curious, what are your thoughts on this? Okay, now sort of sticking to the same theme, the final thing that I wanted to talk about that was an interesting difference for me was around baby names. Now in the US, it is not uncommon to talk to your friends about the names that you're thinking of for your child, or at least just share that with them and say, hey, I'm thinking of this name, what do you think? And maybe you don't go around announcing to everybody, but you do mention it. Like I've known people who were expecting, and funnily enough, one case that comes to mind, they said, well, we're gonna name our kid Ava, sort of just to give me a heads up. But here in the Netherlands, the default is keeping the name a secret until the baby is born. And that is something I have decided to adapt because it is really important to my wife that we do that. And everyone around us has done it, so we're doing it as well. But in the US, you'd be a bit more open about it and say, oh, we're thinking about these names. But with that said, it's not like nobody in America would keep the name a secret. Some people choose to do so, but again, it's just more common to be more open about it. Whereas here in the Netherlands, I think I know one person who shared the name, and that was very special. Like she was doing something totally out of the ordinary. And let me tell you, there've been very many babies born around us in the last 2 years. My sample size on this is not small. So those are just a few quick differences that I've noticed already in my experience, but let me tell you, I've noticed way more. And I'm really excited to talk to you in future videos about all the differences that we're experiencing, you know, as a Dutch-American couple, as Dutch-American parents in the future, and even just preparing for the child. I am beyond excited to be sharing those with you. So until next time.